Today in this audio lecture, we shall discuss Frankenstein by Mary Shelley in relation to the Romantic movement. Although Frankenstein is primarily considered to be a Gothic novel, yet the novel has significant connections with the Romantic movement. Mary Shelley's father, William Godwin, had a very deep impact on many of the English Romantic poets. And that is, mentioned frequently in their writings, like how they were influenced by him. Even Mary Shelley's husband, P.B. Shelley, was one of the key Romantic poets. And Mary Shelley herself was frequently in the company of such other notable romantics as Lord Byron, because now we already know that the contest for writing a ghost story that took place, which resulted in the creation of Frankenstein, Lord Byron was one of those who participated in that ghost story writing contest. Now, just as it is very difficult to define Romanticism, it is also difficult to define the Gothic. Yet, there are three specific characteristics which can be identified as features of Romanticism, which are also of great importance to Shelley's Frankenstein. Now, what are these three features which are able to define Romanticism and at the same time can be related to the text Frankenstein? Firstly, the concern with radical social reform, meaning to bring about social changes. Secondly, there is a preoccupation with the role of the poet, that what kind of role the poet is playing, and the workings of the imagination. So firstly, to bring about social reform, social change. Secondly, the role of the poet and the workings of his imagination, and an immense interest in nature. While reading the novel Frankenstein, we find all these three features at work, and we are also able to analyze the events that take place in the plot of the novel in relation to these features. As far as the Romantics are concerned, they always looked for, social progressive causes and rejected the conventional, the traditional social morals. And as a result of which, many Romantic poets felt very isolated. In fact, they got separated, alienated from society as a whole. Now, why did it happen when the Romantics took the initiative to bring about social reform? When they rejected the traditional social morals? Why did they get alienated from society as a whole? When they tried, to transform the world the society through poetry, they got isolated. So we can see that when the Romantics came up with social progressive causes and rejected the traditional social morals, they then they not only felt isolated, but when they tried to bring about transformation, when they tried to transform the world through their poetry, they were equally isolated. Now, as far as the Romantics are concerned, for them, imagination can be used for two purposes. They can use imagination to escape the world, to live in the world of imagination, to escape reality. And secondly, they can use it to transform the world from which they are trying to escape. And this reflects upon their creativity, like how much creative these Romantics were. They were as powerful, they seemed to be, as powerful as God, where they tried to put emphasis or to give more importance to the assertion of the self, where individual becomes more important than anything else, and where they valued individual experience at the same time. So we can see that Romantics believed in bringing about social reformation. They wanted to transform the world through their poetry, which led to their isolation. And they believed that they can not only use their imagination to escape this world, to escape reality, but at the same time, they can use their imaginative faculty to transform this world, which suggests how much creative they were, and they can be placed or they can be called as powerful as God. And that's why, they become Promethean figures. If you look at the title of the novel, you'll find it's written Frankenstein or the Modern Prometheus. When you will read the novel, we shall discuss the myth of Prometheus. Who is Prometheus? What happened to him? And why has Shelley given this subtitle to his novel Frankenstein, the Modern Prometheus? Now, even the Romantics can be compared to Prometheus, because Prometheus was someone who defied God, who went against God. So just like him, the Romantics also went against social conventions, traditional morals, and tried to create a world of their own. So in this respect, Romantics can be compared to Promethean figures who rival God, who stand against God, who stand against the law of nature, defy God, and try to create their own world. Another point we should note regarding the Romantics is that the Romantics not only, looked within their own self, they not only looked within to delve into their own inner natures, but they also looked outside to the natural world around them. They actually the Romantics were actually reacting, protesting against the earlier 18th century admiration for the ordered and cultivated. Meaning, as far as 18th century is concerned, it always looked for everything. It always looked for everything which is organized, which is very much well polished and cultivated, very, very structured and ordered. While the Romantics, were more interested in the wild aspects of the nature. They were more interested in the untamed aspects of nature, those aspects which cannot be tamed, which cannot be ordered, which cannot be, made to have an organized structure. So they were more interested in the wild, and in this respect, they were simply protesting against the 18th century approach. And in this respect, the Romantics were greatly influenced by Edmund Burke, who defined, the beautiful as something which is characterized by smoothness, orderliness, brightness. But what interested the Romantics more was the sublime. Now, what do you mean by the sublime? And why did it, attract the attention of the Romantics? Sublime means something, which is of excellent beauty, which is very noble, which is very elevated. Like, let me say something which is awesome, which is extraordinarily beautiful. So, these Romantics were more interested in the sublime. But for them, this sublime, this elevated beauty had some other meaning. These Romantics associated the sublime with darkness, solitude or loneliness, infinity, something which does not have any end, or terror, which is inspired by the huge, which is inspired by something which is beyond our understanding, which is beyond our comprehension. Hence, while Frankenstein is, generally considered a Gothic novel with very important connections to the Romantic movement, but critics have suggested that it has connections with many other genres as well. Now, if we look at the narrative structure of the novel, we shall find that the novel begins with letters, and we all know that which subgenre of the novel is written in the form of letters. Epistolary novel, right? So, if we consider Frankenstein, the critics have rightly said, they have rightly claimed that it has connections with many other genres as well, because just as it is a Gothic novel, absolutely it is a Gothic novel, but we can call it an epistolary novel as well, since it has the form of letters. And it may be seen as the first work of science fiction because the subject matter of the novel draws much on scientific and technological advances, and at the same time suggests the possible future consequences or results of such developments. We can connect Frankenstein, or we can consider Frankenstein as a science fiction because it was written at a time of when great changes were taking place in British society, and the novel also deals with a variety of issues which are very, very central to the development of industrial Britain in the late 18th and early 19th centuries. And this was a period when significant developments took place in science and technology, partly as a result of such scientific and technological advances, and it was also a time of social and political upheaval. Hence, before we start reading the novel, now we are already aware of the background, the social and political background, as well as the historical background of Frankenstein. We also know what factors are responsible for the creation, or what led to the creation of this wonderful Gothic novel, Frankenstein. Therefore, this very novel where Shelley draws upon scientific research, Shelley provides a frighteningly believable prediction, like what the future might hold in a world where it is man and no longer God who holds the secret of life. Now, this very statement which I made just now is very, very significant to your understanding of the entire novel, because as I said that the entire subject matter of the novel is drawn upon scientific research, and we come to know, and will come to know after reading the novel, that what happens when man takes the responsibility of creation or possesses the secret of life and tries to replace God. So, Shelley's account Shelley's account of this scientist who creates a monster would help us, who creates a monster, and the followed by the consequences would enable us to understand science from a different perspective.